Tier one is mainstream pop dominance. And these are just the top five legends when it comes to women in pop music. So, for the most in demand pop star of 2024, we have Taylor Swift, of course. The main trait that I think gives her the best advantage over all of the other pop girls is the fact that she can very easily reinvent herself. This lady is a shapeshifter. Pop artists will always be rebranding and changing their image and style in order to stay relevant, but I think Taylor Swift is like the queen of this. She's a master of reputation management, no pun intended, but being able to rebrand ever so often just in order to stay relevant to the public, it's just not as easy as it seems. But her weakness is that she simultaneously depends a lot on a personal narrative that leaves a lot more room for public speculation and criticism. So think her very public relationships and how she writes songs about the relationships that she's been in, even her legal matters and her fallouts with other artists and celebrities are mostly public, and there's definitely a lot of choice when it comes to this, but I couldn't imagine how big that is to handle for just one person. At number two, we have Beyoncé, obviously, queen of pop with unmatched influence and longevity. The main trait that I believe gives her the title of HBIC, Queen of Pop, is the fact that she is a master of the element of surprise. If you think of her releases or her appearances, it's always been that essence of, it's me, Beyoncé. I come when you least expect it. And she's granted this superpower by way of great management teams and the development of a strong, consistent brand image. Everyone knows Beyoncé is known for staying quiet when it comes to the media, which is why I believe that her weakness is the fact that she has so low engagement with the general public. It just makes her really unrelatable and kind of puts her in a box when it comes to marketing her brand in other ways. So number three, we have Rihanna, global icon with a strong brand and a dedicated fan base that is willing to literally buy whatever she tells them to. Rihanna is like a master hypnotist, like a seductress. But I think that the trait which makes her top three pop girl is the individuality, personality factor that she carries and that she has carried for a very long time. Even in the way that she's taken this entrepreneurial direction, pivoting from her music career and into other industries, even that move is just so on brand to the concept of this bold, individualistic, signature self kind of trait. But there is a weakness to this, however, and in my opinion, it's just the lack of music output. Everyone says that Rihanna is known for putting everything out but an album, so there's an element of stubbornness there when your audience asks for one thing but you give them something totally different every single time. Fenty is a strong brand and she's going to see so much more success even beyond today from it. But I think that coming out with so much product all of the time will definitely become a bit gimmicky to the point even her main fan base would begin to recognize and criticize these methods of encouraging consumeristic culture. At number four, we have Adele, record-breaking vocalist with massive, massive, massive global appeal. When I think of what makes Adele a top four pop girl, the first words that come to my mind are passion and love and drama, but in the most classy, timeless, and relatable way. You just feel for Adele. You think of a powerful voice and amazing ballads, but you also associate her with like heartbreak. And I think Adele masters relatability in this way, even with her weight loss story like following her throughout her career, there's something that you're always rooting for Adele in that way, but I think that's also where her weakness lies. Adele is a very private celebrity and she is mostly quiet on social media, combined with taking a long hiatus between albums. You kind of forget about her until she pops up again with another song about heartbreak, which is fine because we all know what we expect from Adele. It's strong branding that even depends on her talent more than anything, which makes her stand out amongst her peers. But it does, like I said earlier, it confines her to a box, like a tissue box when you go through a breakup or you're having an argument. Speaking of argument, that takes us to number 5, and that's Nicki Minaj, queen of rap and simultaneously top 5 on the pop girly list in terms of popularity and star factor. Her best celebrity trait is the way she can captivate an audience and a strong following. And not only a following that purchases your music and supports your career, but a following that will conduct movements, marketing campaigns, and perform full-on finance strategy routines for free because they support you that much. Nicki Minaj is a brand in and of herself, but she does have an empire of the Barbs who move like no other pop girl stan base moves. And to have this quality of leadership and influence is her strongest point. The downside to this is the fact that to create a dedicated fan base such as this, you have to emphasize what's called in marketing as spiky points of view, which basically means that you need to be willing to state your opinion and what you believe in and what you are willing to advocate for in a very domineering way. And this does steer a lot of people or the general public away, but it also creates a group of like-minded individuals that would be willing to represent your brand and what you're about on your behalf. This is a weakness, in my opinion, because you create a very tight niche around who your audience is. And when you're the type of person that is going to say and stand by your personal beliefs, no matter who it may offend, it basically leaves your audience having to consistently fight for you time and time again. And so that concludes the top 5 tier of this list. So next we have tier 2, which are some celebrity pop stars who I feel have a strong following and continuous growing influence. So on that, we first have Ariana Grande, who has powerful vocals and a very dedicated fan base. Ariana's strength, in my opinion, is her youth and ability to appeal to a younger audience, which secures familiarity with her name and brand image for years and years to come. So she is vocally talented, but even the youthful cadence in her tone, and especially her looks and overall style, is very pointed amongst her peers. With that being said, I think her weakness lies in this seemingly rigid and almost very carefully constructed physical image that simultaneously contrasts her perceived personality and personal narrative. There's like a yin and yang kind of element to this though, where her personality gives kind of this dark feminine energy, but her image remains like really dolly, girly, light and airy kind of vibe, which I think can be off-putting to people who appreciate consistency in personality and image. Which brings us to number 2, Doja Cat, and her quick rise to superstardom doesn't really negate the fact that she definitely dominates the charts, and she's also very good at utilizing social media to her advantage. I think her strength is the fact that she is and has been chronically online. To me, she's like an internet artist, and I mean that in the most genuine way. I call her that because she's very multi-talented in a way that I think she utilizes meme culture and internet culture in her branding of her image, which allows her to relate to younger generations who are online, which also promises her a couple of years in the industry because she knows how to work trends and elements of shock factor when it comes to staying relevant, especially online, which is also where I think her weakness lies, because in this sense, to me, she's kind of like spammy. She's like those random ads you get while you're scrolling on TikTok, but the ad is so interesting you can't stop watching it and you have to engage with it because it's just that good. And sometimes it's so bad that it's actually that good. But with that, the gimmicks can become very old very quickly, and it could take her jumping through hoops in order to get attention, even though she's a very talented and well-versed artist. Which brings us to Miley Cyrus. And honestly, when I think of Miley Cyrus, I think of her smile. Like the first thing is her smile, what I think of. I still think of her as like a country girl. I think about her family as well and the people that she's always been associated with. I think Miley's strength and what makes her such an impactful celebrity is really her story. She has a connection to the concept of duality in terms of how she is associated with being a pop star and being a normal girl, being a party girl to being a wholesome girl, and then being a wholesome girl to just being what seems to be like herself, which makes me think of her family and her beginnings and where she's come from. Her weaknesses, I think, reflect in this way as well, to where she doesn't have much of a public persona as much as it's just her personality on the front line of her career. Miley feels like a cousin that you've known since you were young, so there's like this interpersonal feeling that kind of attaches us to her. But for some people, she's like that cousin that you have to love from a distance, while with others, or her core fan base in particular, feel an obligation to closely support her because of what she's been through and that associated attachment that they have with her, if that makes sense. Which brings us to Olivia Rodrigo, who is a breakout star with a massive teen following. And I think that's her strength. She's representing the teen angst of this current era that we're in. Her following goes from young to really young, and no doubt she's like this representation of, in my opinion, a Gen Z Kesha, and not musically, but in the way that she fully represents the emotions, image, and lifestyle of a very relevant generation. I think her weakness would be the rebrand expectation. When you start with a very young audience, you kind of have to reinvent yourself as the generations get older. So if she or her team isn't ahead of the curve when it comes to elevating her image at the right time so that she can continue to be relevant within her generation. So with most artists, it's just the good girl gone bad, or like the she's growing up kind of rebranding. That's just the process that most artists go through. But I think that with people and audiences becoming more hyper aware of the actual rebranding process, there's going to be a lot of expectation when it comes to this point for her. So I hope she can live up to whatever expectations her target audience will have for her when that time comes, but we'll just have to see. Which brings me to Camila Cabello. So she is a successful solo career after Fifth Harmony. Camila's biggest strength is her team. She has a strong team behind her. She has great PR. Whoever is doing her image consulting and whoever is in charge of her brand management, they are definitely experts in their field. It kind of gives that all Camila has to do is show up because of her already established name and strong perception of being leader of the girl group Fifth Harmony, which I also feel is her weakness, because I feel as though people who are fans of Camila now have been fans since Fifth Harmony. So I think she struggles to capture a likability with the general public and solidify a core fan base. That brings me to Billie Eilish. So Billie Eilish is an alternative pop sensation with a dedicated young fan base. I believe Billie's strength is the fact that she's an experienced and a very specific artist at that. She has an intrinsic kind of energy about her, as well as with her music and her image, and it all kind of meshes and makes sense and makes for a very consistent experience. She's really just a vibe and a mood, and it's actually pretty broad but niche at the same time. Very relatable, like Adele, except instead of thinking of heartbreak, you think more melancholy, and not necessarily depression, but almost a feeling of it's okay not to be okay. That's why even if someone doesn't listen to Billie Eilish consistently, they know at least one song that they like by her. She's very consistent in the way that you know exactly what you're getting from her every time, but Billie can also easily be at risk for becoming typecast in this way, I do think. However, her appeal to a younger audience is kind of her safety net when it comes to this. And speaking of safety net, we go on to Lana Del Rey, who has a cult following and a unique artistic vision. Lana Del Rey's strength is that her entire niche is a representation of a very well-known, timeless aesthetic. She has an old Hollywood flair that continues to appeal to women who are in the coming of age part of their lives, and she gives me the impression that she simply reinvents this aesthetic in modern ways that appeal to a very rigid age range audience. However, she also at the same time caters to a specific mood and vibe that doesn't really ever go out of style. It's like a formula that's worked for years, and she capitalizes off of not having to be outrageously original. She kind of capitalizes off of the concept of being classic in her music and in her image. And I think her weakness lies in her potential competition, which I think we haven't seen yet. But if someone wanted to do classic better than Lana Del Rey in terms of becoming a pop star and essentially taking away her part in the market share, I think it could be done simply by following the blueprint that she's laid out. And speaking of blueprint, that takes us to number 8 on this list, which is SZA. So SZA is an R&B star with a growing fan base and critical acclaim. I still consider her a pop girly because of her level of mainstream celebrity and her associations, especially within music. But SZA's strength in this sense, I think, is her use of nostalgia. So SZA has a very nostalgic essence to her, especially within her association with nature. As far as imagery, she's capitalized off of that earthy black girl aesthetic image-wise, but also gives you a sense of nostalgia, remembering and processing emotions, which I believe ties into a spirituality kind of vibe that I think is overall very relatable. Nostalgia is a powerful marketing tactic that brands use in order to evoke emotions out of the audience. And I think that her weakness is her inconsistency. You really don't know what to expect from her, when to expect it from her, or if she tells you about herself, whether it's truth or not. She has this like sporadic energy about herself. She even releases music sporadically. And while this has contributed to a sense of exclusivity and anticipation for her work, I find that she fluctuates in the industry so much between taking breaks. So she'll come back 3 months later featured on a rap song, and then 2 years later she releases a pop song, and then a month after that she releases an R&B song, which is great because, you know, she's not in a box. But I think her inconsistency supersedes her relevance sometimes. And in talks about relevance, that's when we go to Normani, who is also a former Fifth Harmony member with solo potential. And I think that's exactly her strength, potential, which I don't think is necessarily good news for her, because you always feel like you're on the edge of your seat with Normani, and then she kind of always leaves you with a cliffhanger to where you just can't depend on her rollouts, her promotions, her bodies of work to catapult her career. She has a distinct voice, a good look, the association with Fifth Harmony. She can dance, and even her most recent album has gotten praise from the general public. However, it always feels like she's missing something, and this is where I think having a good team to properly time out your releases and your rollouts is so important, because she always leaves you wanting more, but it doesn't really ever deliver. Like, you get the appetizer, but you never get the main course. So there's all this space for potential, but no delivery, which is where I think her main weakness is. Next on this list is going to be Charli XCX. And I think her strength is that she's the underdog right now. She came out of nowhere with Brat, which is the album that's just released. But I think that even listening to her album, you can tell she's pushing boundaries in the pop scene. And I think if she continues to push those boundaries, she could see a lot of success. I think she's ready and positioning herself to be one of the main pop girlies because she's been in the game for so long, and even the way she talks about her fame in the album, you can just feel the awareness of the position that she's in right now when it comes to being a celebrity in the pop industry. Her weakness, I think, is just going to depend on her ability to achieve mainstream commercial success in the way that she is positioned to. Translating that experimental sound and image into chart-topping hits will definitely be a challenge, but I think if she balances that same artistic integrity and transparency with commercial appeal, she'll definitely be able to achieve that success. And that concludes the top 10 of tier 2 list. So next we have tier 3 list, which are basically just some celebrity stars who I feel are emerging artists with a lot of potential. So number 1 on this list is going to be Tinashe. And I believe Tinashe's strength is the amount of experience that she has in the industry. She dances, she sings, she writes. She is definitely an artist that you can tell she's an expert or becoming an expert in the field that she is in. She's been in the game for so long and has been overlooked a little bit, but I think she also has that underdog kind of energy. But she does need to figure out how she's going to appeal to a younger generation a bit more, just because I feel like her weakness is in her nostalgia of how she is just so early 2000s in her style, in her cadence. But I don't think it's modern enough. I think she is wanting to appeal to that 25 to 35-year-old age range when she should be appealing to the 18 to 25-year-old age range, if that makes sense. Tinashe, in my opinion, makes music for zillennials, but I think that she should broaden her audience so that she can see more of that mainstream success. So basically, just keep doing what Nasty did, and I don't think she'll survive. Number 2 on this list is going to be PinkPantheress, and she has a really unique sound, which is gaining traction, but she's still establishing a wider audience. And I believe her strength is in the fact that she makes music for the future. It's kind of like that AI, internet, hyper techno pop type of sound, which is definitely niche for now, but I think will be a growing sector in mainstream pop music very soon. Definitely because of TikTok, but PinkPantheress makes music for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, who are younger than Gen Z, but she still has aesthetic appeal enough to relate to a niche audience today. And I think her weakness lies in the fact that she will have to stay as relevant as she can before her specific niche genre really blows up. I think that she should be acknowledged as a forerunner in this sort. Even though I know she isn't the one who came up with this genre, I think she's made a huge imprint when it comes to developing a mainstream sound from that specific niche in today's culture. And then lastly, on this list, we have Tyla, who is a rising star with major potential who still needs to solidify her fan base. I think her strength is in the fact that she is universally appealing. She has a universal sound that is not only relevant in Western society, but all around the world. And she definitely gives new Rihanna vibes. You can tell that within her management, there is a very experienced and calculative team that is in charge of her image and how she is consistently seen and talked about in the media these days. She's almost already solidified in a sense because of her virality and the fact that she seems to have all the makings of a star, but her weakness is quite literally her health right now. She's been going through a lot of things as far as having to be in and out of the hospital or in and out of rest, canceling shows and things of the sort. It really seemed like a month ago nothing could stop her steady rise to fame, but now she's not able to fulfill as many things as she would be able to if these injuries and health problems did not occur. But hopefully she'll be able to fully recover and really show us the levels she's obviously able to attain. So all in all, how to give celebrity energy, according to this list, involves being able to reinvent yourself, mastering the element of surprise, being an individual, being a leader, appealing to the youth, utilizing social media to your advantage, having an impactful story, representing a generation, having a signature hairstyle, having a good team around you, becoming an experience, being relevant, using elements of nostalgia, having potential and acting on it, taking advantage of being the underdog, being a trailblazer, and lastly, taking advantage of universal appeal. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. It was very fun to make. So let me know who your favorite artist is. Do you think this ranking should have been different? And what do you think is the most important trait to have when it comes to being a celebrity pop star? Let me know in the comments below. For this series, I'm thinking of doing videos in this way, but making it different for social media influencers, actresses, or even women who are political figures. So let me know what you think of this idea. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye!